Brian Dyer doesn't have a superpower, but he's always loved stories about people who do.
Superheroes in particular were my thing growing up. Like, for the longest time, I was going to be a comic book artist.
And like those heroes, he planned to use his abilities for good.
Thought later on in life, when I'm a millionaire artist and I have, money to burn and I've got all this free time, I would love to do art for kids in the hospital.
Like many origin stories, there were a few hiccups along the way. After college, Brian struggled to find steady illustration work, until one day he had a conversation with his sister.
I explained to her this idea I'd had for creating superhero illustrations for kids in hospitals. And once I kind of gave her that whole pitch, she thought, well, why don't you just do it?
Brian created You Are the Hero. It's a nonprofit organization that creates superhero portraits for kids with chronic illnesses, free of charge. Kids like Jaden Hibbert. Jaden loves Legos and talking about his favorite superheroes.
Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk.
At 15 months old, Jaden was diagnosed with retinoblastoma, a form of eye cancer. He endured 7 months of treatment before being declared cancer-free. His right eye had to be removed.
And I sent in a picture and he's like, what kind of powers do you want? So we're like, of course, like bionic, amazing vision, because he's only got one eye. And then like really cool glasses.
Brian lets the kids pick their hero's name, colors, and superpowers. He takes care of the rest. Meet Super J.
And I just started bawling. I was like, oh my gosh, Jada, look at it. It just looks just like you. And Jada was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Seeing him and his mom just embrace it and saying, he's got the super eye and he's got these super goggles. That was a really, really fun one to do.
Keegan Denicky was 7 years old when she started having severe shoulder pain. Her parents took her to a doctor for testing.
So we went into the pediatrician and he mentioned blast cells and leukemia, and those are the only two things that we heard. Everything else is just a blur.
Keegan spent 2 years and 2 months in treatment for leukemia.
It's a lot of bumps and there's a lot of high points, but there's also a lot of low points. And it's hard, but you gotta battle it out.
A battle that was no match for Keegan's alter ego, Stargirl.
My favorite colors at the time were purple and pink, so I chose those, and yellow for the star.
Keegan's been cancer-free since December 2015. Her dad says Brian's drawing helped them through the hard times.
I don't know that people fully understand that when you're going through that treatment, the little things mean so much. So to see something like that, to see your daughter as a superhero is really uplifting. It's really a cool thing.
Your illness is not your identity. You are the hero. This is what you are, this illustration. This is how everybody sees you. And this is how you should see yourself.
Liam Kirsch saw himself as a dinosaur. At 13 months old, his fussy behavior worried his parents so much that they took him to the hospital.
Ended up being a grapefruit-sized tumor, and so we were admitted that day. It took a couple weeks, like a week or so, to figure out what kind of cancer it is, and then that's where he was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma.
A cancer that affects muscle tissue. Liam received chemotherapy and entered remission, only to see the cancer return. That's when he became Brian's first You Are the Hero drawing. Choosing a name was easy. Dino Liam, the Cancer Crusher.
Yeah, he loved it. He loved it, because then in his head as a kid, he really thinks he is a dinosaur in a way.
While Brian's drawing provided a boost, Liam's cancer battle was only beginning. After another year in remission, it came back a third time.
That's just kind of what he was used to. It was his whole life was at the hospital and dealing with it, and he handled it like a champ. And
it almost just became our normal routine after a while, though. You know, it's just how we lived.
The tumors multiplied, and Liam was moved into hospice care. On August 13th, 2017, Liam passed away. He was 4 years old.
He passed away, and we had to follow the hearse. You know, the hearse came and picked him up, and then we followed that to the funeral home. That was it, and then you have to turn around and go home. No, it's terrible.
His parents made sure his spirit lived on by putting Brian's artwork on Liam's tombstone.
Obviously, I am incredibly humbled by their choice to do that. And I visited it myself. It took me about a year before I could finally muster up the kind of emotional fortitude to go and see it. I went by myself, and it was a very emotional experience for me. Like, I just kind of stood there quietly for a while.
The girls will be in the car and we'll drive past, and they just wave out the window and say, "Hi, Liam." So I'm really thankful for it.
It's a tribute to the impact of You Are the Hero.
The response from parents and the response from the kids in particular, like, that's why I do this.
In almost 5 years, Brian's drawn more than 140 illustrations.
Every time I see him, I thank him and thank him for what he does and what he did, not only for my daughter, but for all these kids.
I just think it gives them kind of an outlet to, see themselves in a different form and see the strength that they do have.
It just lifts their spirits up, and it lifts everybody's spirits up. Like, who doesn't want to be a superhero?
So while Brian may not be more powerful than a locomotive or able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, he's used his talent to help those who need it the most. And that's pretty super.
It is an absolute joy to work on this stuff. I sit here 4 years later, and I can honestly say to myself, I can't imagine doing anything else with my life.